Wrestle Radio Rack. How you doing today?
I'm good, man. Thank you very much for having me on. I've been having a good time since I stopped wrestling for Japan and for Noah in particular, and I've been really enjoying working the States again and working the indie circuit, man. It's funny. It's kind of, it's grassroots, so it's not such a bad thing to return to.
Yeah, there's something really wholehearted about, going and seeing the promotions throughout the States, some of the different indies and stuff like that. To me, that's where you're going to find probably the most purest form of wrestling as far as in the States. More like
right.
Based.
These guys are doing it because they love it, not because of the tons and oodles of money they're making.
Exactly. So I think probably a good place to start, kind of the obvious place to start, is probably with what made you want to become a wrestler.
Oh, God. I always liked it since I was a kid. I never intended on becoming a wrestler. Always thought I'd be an actor. And, majored in drama and shit in junior college. And I hooked up with a guy named Jerry Monty. I was doing some backyard wrestling. And we were renting the ring from Jerry, and he was a preliminary wrestler for WWF, the WWE now. But Jerry, saw that I had some natural talent and wanted to train me. And his price was right, which was basically free. He let me work off my dues, wrestling for him. And I remember the first day I was leaving for wrestling practice, I remember my mom and dad kind of having a heart-to-heart with me and saying, you're not thinking about doing this for a living, are you? And I said, hell no. I said, I'm smarter than that. I'm going to be a doctor or something. And there I went, out the door, man. And once I got my first taste, I was hooked. I was always athletic. I played football, did amateur wrestling, and weightlifting, swimming, all that shit. And so, wrestling was the athleticism that I already possessed, plus, my love of theatrics and drama and getting in front of people and acting like a complete loon. And so it just was a perfect fit, man. I fell in love with it. And Jerry Monty got me my first WWF booking against Coco Beware. And
oh, wow.
I had, there was a sold-out arena, Sayland Arena, and Hogan was on the card, came up and talked to me that night, stayed in a nice hotel, ate the catering at the event, and sat by the pool that morning, worked out, and I just thought, wow, this is a hell of a good life. This is something I'd be interested in doing. And, it just kind of took off from there. I was addicted.
So in doing that, how was your training especially like, and how do you think, as far as breaking into the business and wrestling schools and such like that, has it changed from the time that you broke in, do you think? Is it different? Is it harder now than it was back then? Or?
Well, it's definitely changed. I mean, time has a knack of doing that. When I first got in the business, David Meltzer was still getting death threats, for breaking kayfabe. And, so it was a different time. You had to be big. They just didn't have too many guys Crash Holly's size. And he broke in around the same time I did. Kind of interesting. We both wrestled at the same wrestling gymnasium, but it was two separate schools working under the same roof. So he wrestled for Woody Farmer's group. I wrestled for Jerry Monty's group. But, at that time, Crash had no real hopes of making it. I didn't either. And, but we just did it because we were stupid. We loved it. And, once you get it in your blood, I mean, it's really hard. You can't beat it out with a stick or a steel folding chair,
Yeah. Wow. So from that, I mean, you went into, do you remember who your first match was against, and do you have any memories of your first match specifically?
My first match was against a guy, I believe it was the Samoan Bulldog in Vallejo, and he just pretty much kicked my ass. And on the lockup, he snuck in a punch straight to the nose, and I started running from the guy, and that was pretty much my first match. Other than that, I did backyard stuff, and I couldn't even tell you, who my first match was there.
Yeah.
But I wrestled a guy named Simone Bulldog, and he beat the crud out of me. I made the classic green guy mistake. I walked up to him and told him all of my great ideas, all the fantastic moves I was going to do to him. And, he's listening to me, and he said, "Okay, brother, yeah, I like it." And I said, "Well, what part did you like?" "Oh, all of it, brother. It was all good. Everything you say, we're going to do it all, brother." I was like, "Fuck yeah." I walked away patting myself on the back like, "Hey, I'm so damn good. This guy, he took all of my ideas, not just one or two. He loved them all." And we went to lock up. All the playbook went out the window, and he just started socking me and brutalizing me. And he outweighed me by probably, I don't know, a good 150 pounds or so. I was about 180. He was about, I don't know, 320, 340. And, just a monster guy. And that was my first experience. And then after that, wrestled a battle royal, and two guys teamed up on me in the corner, gave me chops until the chest, bled, and, all that fun stuff. But, I don't think the business has gotten any easier to get into. You see a lot of smaller guys in it now, and I think that's good, for the industry. I think it's, great. CM Punk, the last time I checked anyways, he had the belt on Raw. And I think it's good. It shows people that, since it's entertainment, I mean, we can, Vince can do what he wants to do. And, as long as people buy tickets and it makes good business sense, Vince will keep doing it. Guys like Rey Mysterio, I met Oscar when he first broke into the business, and, well, not when he first broke in, but I think he was like 16, 17 years old. And I met him in Newark, California, working for Big Time Wrestling, a guy named Kirk White. And, those guys, they kind of paved the way, I think, for some of the smaller wrestlers.
Absolutely. I mean, as long as the promoters can have that good ear to the wind and know exactly what the fans want, I don't think it matters. It definitely doesn't matter, I would say, what size the guy is, how well he's built, this and that. I mean, if you're going to push a guy, you're going to push a guy. And
right. I
think nowadays, you see guys like a guy like John Cena, well, he gets a lot of flack, and this and that. You either hate him or you love him kind of thing. But the thing behind him is that they have just pushed him down everybody's throats so much that there's no choice for him, to be over or not.
Right.
Because they put all that effort behind him.
I think the world of John, I think he's a great, pretty good actor too. But these movies they keep putting him in, my God, every one of them sounds like an ABC Sunday night movie, 12 grams. Let me guess the story. He's a cop who runs around shooting bad guys, and he has a wife or something, and either she's kidnapped or, whatever the hell, she's murdered, and then he goes on a, revenge thing. I mean, it's the same freaking movie told over and over again. Either he's a cop, a Marine, or whatever the fuck. I'd like to see something a little different with the guy in it,
Yeah. Just pigeonholing them to that one thing.
Right. It sucks, man. The movies are horrible.
Yeah.
They're bad Rambos.
They wonder why it's not, doing major box office. They blame it on the person himself. Well, the actor doesn't write the script, so.
Right. If the movie sounds stupid, it's dumb. It's just a stupid movie.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is there, when you first got into the business, kind of going back to that, is there anything that you found out that you kind of didn't expect, or is there anything that kind of changed as far as your...
Well, I'll tell you right off the bat, man, the thing that shocked me about professional wrestling was that it was real.
Yeah.
Here I was, all my life, I thought it was fake. And, I would see a guy throw a drop kick and hit it, and he was fine. But if the other guy held onto the ropes and he hit the mat, now he's all fucked up. But he's still landing from the same height, you know. Same thing off the top rope. If a guy hits a drop kick off the top rope, he's cool. If he misses it, oh, he's fucked up. Leg drop, same difference. Okay. So as I was growing up, I kind of thought maybe it was, you know, a pretty soft little trampoline, and you know, it was completely phony. But I still loved it. I still appreciated the fact that these guys had to be in shape, that they were athletes. You know, I still appreciated it from that standpoint. But when I got into it, all of a sudden I realized that it wasn't a trampoline, that the mat actually does hurt. And when you get in there with another adult male and a promoter's telling you, okay, you go over, everything about professional wrestling is competition. When I first got into the business, I worked really hard. I mean, I trained a lot. I was a ring rat, man. I was always in the ring. And I wanted to be the best I could be. I worked on my body. I got my body in shape. Well, a lot of the guys that were in there with me, they didn't do that. They didn't spend hours and hours, you know, sending emails and trying to get bookings and hustling and getting 8x10s made, yada, yada. They didn't put that kind of effort into it. So they didn't succeed, whereas I did, because of the effort, the training, everything that I put into it. That's why I succeeded. Making smart business decisions, you know, not screwing people over all the time, things like that. And so I think those kind of things separate, you know, I mean, that makes the business competitive, doesn't it? So that makes it real. The fact that when you get hit with a forearm, a chop, a punch, you know, if the guy's sloppy and he fucking socks you one, you know, drop kicks. I mean, I've been kicked so many times in Japan, I can't even tell you how many concussions I've had. I wrestled a guy from another company one time, and he insisted that he get his finisher in. He wanted to get his finishing move in. And then he said, oh, and then you can kick out. I said, no, you know, it's not necessary. And he insisted. He was like, no, please, I want you to look really strong. I said, okay. So we did our deal. I get up, my back's turned to him. He climbs up to the top rope. He throws the kick to my head, but he shot it. He kicked me as hard as he could right in the back of my fucking head. And I was instantly, you know, loopy. And I went down. It was everything I could do to, you know, keep my composure. Donovan came in. He saw it was a stiff shot. He came in. He covered my back, made sure that I had a second to regain my composure because I was going over in the match. And this guy was trying to knock me out so that I didn't have a chance to go over. And, you know, stuff like that happens in the ring. The wrestling business is very, very real. It is entertainment, but it's real. It bothers me when people use the term fake. You know, fake would mean that maybe we were drawn characters in some kind of cartoon. Yeah. I remember Chris Candido, I think, gave one of the best answers I've ever heard to the question. A waitress at Denny's asked us, oh, so you guys are here for the wrestling? Oh, well, isn't that stuff all fake? And Candido said, abso-fucking-lutely. Everything about it is fake. He said, in fact, we aren't ever even in the ring. They take pictures of us with green screen, and then that's how they morph us onto the television and have us doing all that stuff. He goes, but it's all smoke and mirrors. Yeah, wow. And I thought that was a brilliant answer, because if you're going to ask me such a stupid question and put it to me in such a disrespectful way, well, you deserve to be treated like an idiot. You know, and
stupid question,
you know,
stupid answer.
Right. You know, I thought that was a great answer. Yeah. Of course, it's all fucking fake. Yeah. You know, Chris didn't sell for her.
All right, I think that concludes part B tonight.
It's the live show.
I'm pretty positive because I think a lot longer or any kind of
brand new.
You know, you decide to give your
bodies, but man, could they wrestle.
Archives, yeah, the annals of WrestleCrap. But how much time we got left, Chris, in the show? Should we go into the second part of the interview now, or?
I think we should. I think we better actually.
Yeah.
So that way we can have enough time. I've got 38 minutes left.
Okay.
So I think that gives us enough time to run down the Night of Champions card, too, which I'll pull up here after this part 2.
Okay, here we go.
All right, here's one of the ways I think the wrestling business is very different from when I first got in the business.
Okay.
And I wrote a poem about it, and I embodied my feeling, and this applies to really all of wrestling, everything that's being done with this business, in my opinion. But, you know, I embodied it in the use of the steel folding chair.
All right, I can't wait to hear this.
You know, everybody, I think there's too many high spots. I think there's too many finishers. I think there's too many guys that look exactly the same. You know, I miss the days of Dory Funk, Terry Funk, Dick Murdoch, Dick the Rebel Slater, Cowboy Bob Orton. You know, these are guys that didn't have fantastic bodies, but man, could they wrestle. And Bob Orton was incredibly strong as well. I saw some tapes of Bob Orton military pressing guys with one hand. He'd put them up and then hold them with his head with one hand and then pop them up and then do a backbreaker with one hand. So, I mean, these guys were so talented, but instead everybody looks the same. So anyways, this is kind of my feeling about the business. The poem's called Steel Folding Chair.
All right.
All right, you ready?
We're ready.
Let's hear it.
2x4 kendo stick, baking sheet barbed wire prick, extension ladder or owl's head and her hair. The foreign object that I like best is a steel folding chair. Multi-use in the ring. Crack your head with a swing. Fold it out, jump right off. Over the ropes, hope you're caught. It helps you leap through the air. Wonderful steel folding chair. Ray the Crippler, Terry Funk. Iron Sheik, the dog of junk. Jimmy Snuka, Bam Bam 2, used a chair. I thought you knew. It's for the head, for the throat. Before you use it, here's a note. Directions for its safe use. Use the flat side, silly goose. The chair works best on the floor. Throw me through them, bowling score. The chairs, they topple just like pins. Scattered fans, a strike again. Splashing soda, corn that pops. Posters, pictures, one mom's hot. My baby fell! Big pig screams. She only has lawsuit dreams. I'm standing now by the post. Here's a spot that I like most. Swing the chair right at my head, high velocity, but instead, I will duck, it will miss. With any luck, I will draw my fist. When the chair hits the post, the fans will gasp. Boy, that was close. Then a comeback you will see. Punch you twice, and then with glee. Grab the chair quite naturally. Throw it, swing it, lay me down. Put the chair upon my crown. Moonsault, leg drop, either or. But please don't use it like a whore. Use it once, maybe twice. But listen close to my advice. Use it 3 times, there's a price. It seems your chair has lost its bite. It might as well have been just a kite. The ref looks foolish, the crowd don't care. You've overused the steel chair. Twice has flair. 3, you're disqualified, and I don't care. Abused and bent, I don't have a spare, nor the money for repair. So take it easy, use it well. Made with fine U.S. steel. A vet, a legend. It's been around. Rusted steel, but ooh, that sound. It makes a click, it makes a clack. It pops real good upon the back. But on your head, you'll hear a whack. If it's sold, red to green. If you've used a chair, you'll know what I mean. So anyways, that's kind of the way I look at the business right now. I think everything is overdone. And because everything's overdone, nothing becomes believable anymore. It's hard for me. I've always been smart to the business. When I was 5 years old, like I said, I knew I was watching a form of entertainment. But as I was growing up, I would get lost, just like a good film. Watch a really good movie, I get lost in it, and you forget that you're watching actors and special effects and blood squids and, all that bullshit. Green screen. Yeah. When you're watching a good movie, you believe a man can fly.
Oh, wow.
missing nowadays.
Yeah, we were talking about that a couple of weeks ago actually on the show, is how, you know, everything, you know, it's taken a lot away from, you know, as Chris would say, you know, the psychology that usually is supposed to go in, you know, to putting together a match, you know, and it's a lot like a collection of high spots, hardcore moves, you know, and that sort of thing. And I just want to say about your poem, by the way, Lanny Poffo, eat your heart out.
Right on.
That was awesome.
I owe it all to the poet laureate of WWE. He inspired me.
There you go.
Next thing you know, I'll start throwing frisbees to everybody. Oh, God help.
There you go. Nice.
So here we're trying to cover the first few years of being in the business. I'd say about, you know, maybe about the first 5 years or so. Where did you tend to apply your trade at? What are some of the different promotions that you worked for right in the beginning?
Right in the beginning, man, you know, I worked for WWF, and that was what kind of really cemented it for me. My instructor then told me that if I was serious and he was going to train me, that I had to stop wrestling for WWF when they came to town, because he didn't want me to be a jobber. His idea was that once you're labeled that, it's hard to get out of that spot. You know, you just become a jobber. And I've seen it happen with guys like, you know, Paul Roma and Jim Powers and, you know, a lot of guys. Leaping Lanny is another one. I mean, you know, these guys were all great wrestlers and had good bodies and everything, but they started off as you know, more along the lines of jobbers. And not necessarily Lanny, but, you know, they kind of got that label, and it's a hard label to knock, you know, to get off of you. So I wrestled for WWF. I wrestled for a guy named Blaine DeSantis, and I think his company was called PCW. I mean, mostly it was small companies. I did wrestle for CMLL, you know, from Mexico, and I wrestled for them down at the LA Forum within probably the first 5 years. Wrestled for APW, All Pro Wrestling, who, you know, you've seen from Beyond the Mat. Big Time Wrestling, which is still in business, and All Pro Wrestling is still in business as well here in the Bay Area. You know, I was pretty fortunate, man. You know, I think there's more work actually on the indie scene now than there was back when I started, but you know, I think the pay has probably gotten worse. You know, you know, if you're a guy starting off in this business, I'm surprised promoters haven't started charging guys to wrestle yet.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, I'm serious. I've heard of wrestling for free, wrestling for sandwiches, wrestling for a soda, wrestling for a beer, you know, wrestling for a blowjob, just, you know, all kinds of crazy arrangements that have been made, but cash is hardly ever mentioned.
Yeah.
I think I heard one time, I want to say it was Chris Jericho, that said he wrestled one time for a hot dog and an orange juice.
Yes, I believe that. Totally. You know, and that's what you do sometimes, you know, in this business. But I was pretty lucky, like I said, and, you know, Jerry Monty actually treated me so well, and you know, he's passed away, you know, quite a few years ago, actually. But I'm really grateful to him, because just the fact that my last name was Carillo, and his is Italian as well, he took a liking to me and pretty much, you know, trained me for free, because I didn't have any money for, you know, training. I was 17, didn't even own a car.
Wow. Huh. So you had mentioned that you started working for All Pro Wrestling, and that was, of course, the promotion you were working under whenever Beyond the Mat came into play.
Yes.
How did that all really come about, as far as getting that spot in the movie and such?
Well, I was actually pretty lucky, because a lot of people don't know how APW actually came, you know, to fruition. It was because of a rib, actually, that was played on Roland Alexander, the owner of All Pro Wrestling. What happened was Roland was pretty good friends with Buddy Rose, and not like best buds, like hang out at each other's house, but more like a fan. Roland was a wrestling fan, and he really loved the wrestlers, and he got a chance to know Buddy, and he was treated kind of like a mark, but he was comfortable with that. He got to be with the wrestlers, and eventually got to know them and be friends with them. And so Buddy was wrestling on one of Jerry's cards, Jerry Monty's shows, PCW, in Lakeport here in California. And Roland, Buddy called Roland for a ride, and Roland said, we can all, I'll rent a van, and we can all go up together, and, why don't you ask Jerry if I can manage you? So Buddy asked Jerry when he got there, and Jerry didn't like Roland, and Jerry said, tell you what, tell him if he joins my wrestling school, then he can manage you maybe in a year or two when he's trained.
Yeah.
And so that pissed Roland off, and I was riding with Roland. We drove, back from the show, and the guy that, that was training me at Jerry's at the time was Rick Thompson, and we were driving back, and Roland and Rick were really tight friends. And, Roland, we were sitting at breakfast, and Roland said, you know what, fuck that motherfucker telling me that I have to join a wrestling school. I've been around this business just as long as he has, and Roland said, that's it, I'm opening my own wrestling school. Monday, tomorrow, I'm opening it. I'm getting a business license, and I'm opening a school. And very quickly, Roland found a guy who owned a car lot, and that guy fronted Roland all of the money, and Roland doctored the books a little bit to make it look like the school wasn't making money. That guy ended up selling his portion of the school to Roland for like $5,000, and the rest is history. Roland, ran it. He's still running a successful, training camp. You can't really call it a promotion anymore. All they do is they don't do any shows anymore. But other than that, he's still successful running a school.
Huh. I always wondered about that.
Yeah, so that's how that came about, and Roland did. On Monday, Rick Thompson called me up and said, hey, Roland started a school, blah, 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 and it took me about, 4 months, and, they had a great facility. Jerry's facility had, pigeons shitting on the ring, no joke. And every day before class, I'd sweep off the fucking ring, and, first few bumps, you're breathing in, pigeon shit dust. And had I known about the bird flu, oh my God, I wouldn't have done it. But they had a nice facility, and Rick was the one doing my training, and Jerry never really trained me. He'd come out every once in a while in between plays of a football game and go, kid, work the left arm. Don't work the right arm. He'd give me a little tidbit or something. But he wasn't really training me. Rick was, and when Rick, left to that school, that was my training. And so I talked to Jerry. I tried to work it out to where, I could attend both schools and both classes. And, Jerry felt like I was betraying him. And, Jerry was the one that said, don't come to my fucking school no more. So he made it easy for me to make my decision.
Jeez. It's, so when you were when you were doing the all pro wrestling thing and that all came about, so you were more or less pretty much ready to go at that point. So you're per se like not necessarily a student, but more on like the trainer side of things.
Yeah, I started off as an assistant trainer to Rick, but it was kind of a work because I was trained to an extent. I was better than Jerry's worst guy for sure. But at the same time, I was nowhere near, ready to be wrestling for WWF, which I, was doing so in a jobber capacity. I was nowhere near being ready to be successful in this business, and knew that I needed more training, and that was why I left with him. But they kind of used me as an assistant instructor. And what I would do when Rick was working on something brand new that I hadn't learned yet, I would just watch very closely. And then I would be the first one to demonstrate it, and I would hit it. You know, I had an ability to see it once and kind of hold on to it. And so I started off as APW's assistant instructor and still went through the training with everybody and came out a better man, I think.
Wow. So you had been doing, about how long had you been in the school, per se, before the Beyond the Mat offer came onto the table?
God. You know, I've taken so many kicks to the Chrome Dome that I would never even want to play with dates, but I would guesstimate I was probably in APW before the Beyond the Mat thing happened at least 8 years.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot longer lineage to that than I had really put together
Right.
in my mind.
Right. Started with APW, I was 18 years old. By the time Beyond the Mat took place, you know, I was 25 or something like that, you know.
Wow. So what were your overall memories of the tryout match that's obviously used in the film and the circumstances around it?
Well, kind of interesting because Barry Blaustein, the director of the film, had very definite ideas of characters he wanted to portray in his movie. And he had it in his head that I was going to be a pale guy who was trying. You know, trying to be a star just wasn't good enough. And they wanted the crowd to boo me and for the match to be short. And going into it, I made sure everybody knew I had 10 minutes. That was my agreement. Because when they first approached me, I actually said no. I was like, no, I'm not interested because I had tryouts with WWE before. And, you know, they call the go home after tough fucking 30 seconds. They tell you got 10 minutes. They give you 30 seconds. And then they're calling go home. You haven't even locked up yet. They're saying, oh, go home. So I've been in those situations before, and, you know, I wasn't going to let it happen again. And so they promised me 10 minutes. Both WWE and the director of the film promised me 10 minutes. And so they called the go home at 45 seconds into the match. I think all me and Tony had done was a headlock exchange or something like that. I mean, you know, we actually, you know, put a little bit of wrestling into our pro wrestling, even though I knew everybody wanted to see how many spots we could do or whatever the fuck it is they're looking for, which I don't even think they know what they're looking for. But we did a little bit of wrestling. They called go home at 45 seconds into the match. I just looked at the referee. I said no. And the referee was like, what? I said, no, I'm not going home. Fuck that. I was told 10 minutes, and I'm taking them. 10 minutes. That's what I got. And so I just kept wrestling. And the whole time I could hear Bruce Pritchard over the referee's headset screaming and yelling, you tell that motherfucker to take it home. Blah, 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 blah. I could just hear him screaming in the ref's ear. The referee kept begging. I just said no, kept saying no. And I took my 10 minutes. And because of that, because I took the 10 minutes, the fans liked the match. The fans didn't boo us. They did a little bit at, you know, before the 45-second mark. They booed us a little bit because they hadn't seen us on TV or anything, so they had no cause to cheer. And so, you know, they had to tell a different story in the film. You know, and I think the story that came across with a lot of people is, wow, whatever happened to that guy? That guy was really good.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with that story. Not comfortable with the, wow, he just wasn't good enough. I wasn't comfortable with that bullshit.
Yeah,
and
also
cool film is that it got me hired in WCW and no.
Yeah, so I mean, so WCW, how did that all exactly come about?
WCW came about. There was a gay guy named Jim Barnett, and he was a real old dude, and I'm guessing like 65 or something like that. and he had worked for NWA in an official capacity as a talent scout. And after that, he worked for WCW in an unofficial capacity as a talent scout. And kept up on the internet, and he kept seeing my name pop up and pop up. So he decided he was going to fly out and see me and talk to Sullivan about me. And they were using some of my training footage from APW in the power plant. They were using some of our matches from Gym Wars as examples to their guys. So Kevin had already seen me on video, but Kevin wanted to see if I was the real thing or if I was just rehearsing matches that were choreographed 100 times until finally it looked flawless. So Jim Barnett came out, he watched me instruct a class, and he didn't even see me wrestle, he just watched me instruct, and he called Kevin Sullivan and said, "Hey, Kevin, this guy's the real deal. I just watched him instruct class. He was incredible, and you got to give this guy a tryout." So I had the tryout before I even ever wrestled for Jim Barnett. But then he saw me wrestle the next night. I flew out a week later to, my tryout with Elix Skipper, and had a great match with him that wasn't even supposed to be televised, but they went ahead and put it on television and used my real name, Mike Carrillo.
Wow. So you ended up worked matches while you were in WCW with Elix Skipper. Obviously, Christopher Daniels was also one that I came across that you worked with as well. As far as WCW goes, what was probably your favorite match that you competed in while you were in there?
Well, I didn't wrestle there too long. Most of the time I was employed by that company over a 2-year period. I was just sitting at home collecting a paycheck. But I'd say Christopher Daniels' match, no doubt. Okay, let me put it this way. I think my best match was against Elix Skipper, but my favorite match was against Chris Daniels. And the reason why is because that led to the second time I got hired by WCW. And because Chris didn't break his neck, I was really, really thankful and really appreciative of the fact that Chris was okay. And I had wrestled Chris so many times in California, down in L.A., up in Northern Cali, and we had become pretty good friends. So for me, it was a really cool situation to be able to, be vying for a job and have a guy that I knew like the back of my hand in there with me, and to just know it was going to be a flawless match. And then the fact that there was a huge flaw that happened, and that Chris could have been seriously injured, and yet everything came out okay. We covered, Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, J.J. Dillon, Kevin wasn't there at the time, Eric Bischoff. Everybody came up and commented on the way we persevered. And, we got to the finish so that Scott Steiner could come in and interrupt the match and fuck everything all up.
Yeah. Nice. I'm guessing that the spot with Christopher Daniels would be where he came off the ropes.
Yes.
Yeah. They had some sort of problems with the ropes. Yeah, and that could have been disastrous, but you guys kept on rolling with it and ended up having a really good match on the show. So you mentioned that you basically collected a paycheck for most of your time there. When the company closed down, did you get any kind of notice or?
When Vince bought the company, I was contacted by Johnny Ace, and he liked me. He had seen my stuff from Japan. Told me he was going to talk to Jim Ross about me and put me over, yada yada. And pretty much none of that ever happened. After that, I couldn't even get in touch with Johnny Ace, and I was basically cycled out. After a period, I got a notice that I was let go, and then they cycled me out. It was a 6-month cycle, which was like pretty cool. that I got paid for another 6 months. It was like kind of a severance deal, I guess. But that was nice.
So you had mentioned Japan. At what point did you first start working in Japan?
I started wrestling in Japan, gosh, was it 2001 or 2002? And that was after I lost my deal with WCW and, it closed the company. And I got a call from a friend of mine, Ed Schumann, out in Chicago. And Ed told me that Mitsuharu Misawa was coming out this way and that he had a layover in San Francisco and that he was going to be going to Harley Racing School looking for talent to bring to Noah. I was a long-time fan of Misawa's. I watched him when he was Tiger Mask and all through his career. I did all the old tapes and stuff and really study him and a lot of Japanese wrestlers like Akiyama and Kobashi. And so I, through the help of a friend, Ed Schumann, I ended up sending a couple of emails and sent a video package to Noah, and they came out to the school, to APW, to check us out. And the funny thing was is at the time, Roland, and I weren't even working together anymore. But APW was still like, where I started from, and so I was, going to give them the shot at, doing it with Noah. And but Roland didn't want Bison Smith to be a part of the tryout. Roland thought that Bison wasn't ready, and I said, well, how can he not be ready? You're using him as your head instructor. Bison was the instructor of the school at the time. And I was like, that makes no sense. He's not ready, but he's ready to hella train everybody. I don't fucking get it. And so I just basically put it to Roland that, okay, well, then I'm going to call Kirk White up, and I'll just tell Misawa that the tryout's going to be at Kirk White's place instead. And me, Donovan, and Bison will just be all over at Kirk White's. And so Roland changed his tune and let Bison participate in the tryout. And Noah ended up picking 4 guys. One was myself, Donovan Morgan, Bison Smith, and a guy named Jardy Franz, who completely fucked up his opportunities with Noah by being a jerk-off. And, but Donovan and I, we wrestled there for 5 years. For me, it was such a huge honor just to have Misawa come and be able to meet him and have him at APW and, be able to have a guy that I really respected. I mean, a lot of, American fans won't understand this, but I respected Misawa like American fans respect, Ric Flair. And, of course, I respect him as well and think the world of him. But, that's how I felt about Misawa. So it was so awesome that, he came, he saw me wrestle, and this guy that I looked up to said, wow, this kid's good enough to wrestle for my company. And for me, that was a huge, I don't know, it was like a huge affirmation that maybe I wasn't just chasing pipe dreams and pies in the sky all my life, that maybe I did have some talent and I was good enough. And wrestled there for 5 years, man, and loved it, absolutely loved it.
So they ended up taking you 4 guys off to Japan. You worked there. What do you think are the biggest differences between Japan and the U.S.?
The biggest difference between Japan and U.S. is the fans. Japanese fans are so respectful of professional wrestling. And, U.S. fans are already of the belief that it's entertainment and nothing about it is real. Whereas the Japanese fans are of the belief that it's entertainment, but it's very, very tough, and it's very hard to do and participate in. So I think that's a big difference. Other than that, man, we didn't punch in Noah. You don't do a whole lot of punching. Everything's pretty legit. The referees do make you mind the rules. We couldn't just grab a chair at a whim. Any kind of, hardcore we wanted to do had to be okayed by the office, and no women were involved with our sport in NOAA. It was very sport oriented instead of entertainment oriented. So I guess that was the big difference is NOAA, even though it is entertainment and not a legitimate contest of fighting skills between two guys, that is the story they're telling. They're telling a story of sport and a good fight. Whereas U.S. wrestling is telling a story about a midget that dresses like a leprechaun and runs around with mud on his face, and there's a big gold guy running around with him, and he talks about Hollywood and Oscars and things like that. And there's a superhero guy who does commentary, and then sometimes he's a superhero, and he dashes off to go save somebody, and then he comes back and he's the commentator. But no one knows because he's wearing glasses. You see the difference?
Oh, yeah.
Japan, it's about Mitsuharu Misawa, 8-time champion, 9-time champion. He's going up against Big Van Vader. Now, Vader is at the end of his career. Vader is not the spring chicken he used to be. Vader's having a hard time with his knees. So what do you think Misawa is going to do? I think Misawa is going to go straight for those knees and wear Vader down. You chop that big man down, attack the knees, you stay on him. Misawa has a good chance of winning this. But if he tries to attack Vader on, with the upper body and he tries to match him power versus power, he is definitely going to be on the losing side. With Noah, that's how the commentators are talking, and that's the story. There is no story about Martians, superheroes, vampires, or anything like that. So the fans behaved differently. It surprised me how the fans just don't really boo. I mean, you have to do some pretty dastardly shit to get boos from Japanese fans.
Yeah.
It's not polite to boo. And they'll let you know they don't like what you're doing by just being quiet. And then other times, quiet because they're studying your match. But it's just a different kind of thing with Noah. But other Japan promotions, Michinoku Pro, Dragon Gate, those kind of promotions, they do a lot of the cartoony stuff and guys in masks and high flying, and I think all that's great too. Noah just had a different kind of product.
Oh, absolutely, and I long for the kind of company that came along here in the States that based everything more psychology based and more actually straight up wrestling without so much of the storylines and the gala all around it.
Well, see, and that's what I'm saying, okay? When I say everybody does too much, okay, it doesn't mean that there shouldn't be a storyline in professional wrestling. It doesn't mean that there shouldn't be angles, there shouldn't be chairs, there shouldn't be women. All those things can be involved in professional wrestling. Just don't give me 1,000, images of it at a time. Just concentrate on something important. Stick to one main storyline. I remember WrestleMania 1 was built off of one match. WrestleMania 3 was pretty much built off of one match. And I think WrestleMania 3 was when they first got into trying to make every match important, and every match had to have a storyline that went into the next pay-per-view, and to me that gets really old, it gets really predictable, and sometimes I think it's okay to just have two guys in there fighting for contendership so they can get a title shot. I don't think you need a whole lot of other story. I think that's the story to make a match interesting. And I don't think we see enough of that. I think that things are all done for silly reasons. I think a lot of storylines that are written because of inside jokes, written because of smart marks that, they know some insider information, and it's WWE's way of appeasing them. I don't know what exactly it is. When I say WWE, I'm actually kind of a fan of their product. I really think that WWE is a far superior product right now than TNA, although that's kind of unfair for me to say because I haven't watched TNA since I did my Modest Joint about a TNA episode that I watched. It was when TNA went 2 hours, and I sat and I watched 2 hours of TNA wrestling. And, it took something like 26 minutes. I don't remember. I'd have to go back and check the Modest Joint episode. But it took, I think, 26 minutes before I saw any wrestling on the TNA program. And the match was about 6 minutes. It was brutally rushed. Two guys that have a lot of, talent. And it was just like, why? Why even bother if they're going to be so rushed and do a million high spots, not sell anything, and then a screw job finish? And then it took a long time for the next wrestling match, and I saw the first wrestling hold applied at 1 hour and 32 minutes into the program. And I timed this shit, man. I'm not pulling this out of my ass. 1 hour and 32 minutes into the program, I saw the first wrestling hold, and it was applied by Homicide. He took the guy into a wrist lock, and then he tagged Hernandez. Hernandez came off the second rope with the axe handle to the arm, and then Hernandez grabbed the wrist lock. And I popped. I went, holy shit, wrestling! 1 hour and 32 minutes into the program. And after that, I lost all will to watch TNA. I pretty much gave up on them from that moment on. And, I'm really liking a lot of what I see WWE doing. And I watched their 3-hour special they had, and I couldn't believe the wrestling content in the program. And yet they still had time to promo and put over product and, do all the commercials, but they kept the show very interesting. All the guys worked their asses off. I thought it was a great show. And I'm a big fan of what WWE's doing, but TNA, man, they lose me. And it's funny because they should be the ones that get me. They have some very pure wrestling talent there, but for some reason, that's not the product they're putting on television.
Oh, exactly. I think that as far as top to bottom, as far as innovative wrestling and, guys that have a sense of pure skill that, arguably the TNA roster, is more talented in certain ways than the WWE roster. But you wouldn't know that. You would never know that because you can't see any of them wrestle. Yeah.
You can't. I dare you, man. I'm telling you, that was the last time I watched it, and I might be talking out the side of my neck right now because for all I know, in the past 2 months or 2.5 months since I've watched them, for all I know, they are the wrestling mecca. But they turned me off so bad that show that I watched, and I didn't get to see any wrestling for 26 minutes, and I thought, what the fuck am I watching? I thought I was watching a professional wrestling program, but apparently I'm wrong. Yeah. I'm always, how much money does TNA need to lose before they realize that they're barking up the wrong tree?
Yeah.
It's because they try to copy WWE, but in my opinion, it's a very poor imitation. And even if it was a successful imitation, why would WWE fans want to watch an imitation WWE?
Oh, exactly. It's about making yourself different,
Right.
Successful.
Right. Do something different. Innovative. Hey, TNA tried. They came up with a 5-sided fucking ring.
Yeah.
Great idea, guys. It's going to take a lot more than changing the color of your audience chairs. I mean, if they had all the audience sitting in pink chairs, let's say, that would be different. But I don't think it's different in a good way. And that's kind of how I see them. They try to be different. They try to be hardcore, but yet they just can't seem to pull it off. The X division, full of talent. Full of talent. Are they the marquee? Are they what's pushed? No, but everyone they get their their X division matches and stuff, and I think they do a pretty good job.
That's so that's obviously that took place. The last time you watched TNA had to have been after you had the stint in there.
Yeah, I went wrestled for them. They offered one of those silly contracts that basically the way it works is the wrestler is getting paid so little, and the wrestler has to draw, like, they pay you, let's say, $75,000 a year, okay? Well, to a guy that's hungry and wants to be in professional wrestling, wants to do it for a living, sounds like great money. Then they hit you with, well, you got to pay your own rent-a-car. Anything under a certain amount of miles you got to drive to. So, meal money's coming out of your own pocket and all that shit. And what it ends up being, and they whore you out. They book you on indie shows. They give you a very small portion of that money. And what ends up happening is you draw against your contract. You get to a show, you get to a house show, and you're broke, or, you get to a taping and you're broke, you draw against your contract. And now what ends up happening is you end up going over your contract. And now you're actually basically you're wrestling for free almost to pay back the company money that you borrowed against. And, that's kind of what happens with a lot of young guys. They get in, they see what looks like a decent money offer, and they think, wow, this is great. But that's why guys like Petey Williams ask for a release. It's because they can't make a fucking living.
Oh, absolutely. That's part of the thing that they're supposed to.
TNA makes an angle out of it. They have Kurt Angle, and everybody's pissed off at Kurt Angle, and they all got to buy suits with Kurt Angle's money. This was a little while ago, but it's a shoot. I mean, that's really what they're doing. Angle makes all the money. And he's not the only one. There's a small group of guys that make all the money, and everybody else starves.
Wow, and that's supposed to be, one of the top, second league promotions, in the business, and they just kind of sounds like not really doing a lot to keep the guys happy, especially the guys that are breaking their back, having the best matches, coming up. I mean, Petey Williams, I thought, was just amazing.
Hell of a wrestler, and, he was with the company pretty much when they first started. So, I mean, there's a guy that I think maybe you owe a little bit of loyalty to. I don't know.
Oh, yeah. Well, I have just a couple more questions for you, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up here. The number one here that I have, and I was trying to sneak this in earlier, but I didn't get a chance to. At what point did you come up with the Modest Driver, and how did you come up with it?
Well, the truth of the matter is, a lot of people, Supernova was running around telling people that I had stolen it from him, and it was his invention. The Kryptonite Crunch is what he called it, which I thought was just embarrassingly silly.
Hey, it's your inner voice here. I was thinking it's time to ratchet up our psychology experience by enrolling in Argosy University's College of Behavioral Sciences. We'll get a useful education with real-world residencies while earning a master's degree in marriage and family therapy or in clinical mental health counseling. For more information, call 1-855-ARGOSY-U or visit argosy.edu/counseling. See au-programs.com.
Saw the move done with the Japanese women. If you want a good finisher, you're an American wrestler, you want a good finisher, you want something that's never been done before, you want something that looks incredible, watch the Japanese bitches. They do some crazy shit. All Japan Women used to be just incredible and just a great resource to watch and come up with moves. And I know that Supernova did the same thing. He would check that stuff out and bite moves. Kind of an interesting thing. When I had my tryout with Elix Skipper, I used the inverted gory buster for the finish of the match. And Kevin Sullivan's idea was he wanted to call the move the end. And so I did it, against Elix Skipper. I did it in a couple of, matches, and Shane Helms had seen it. And Shane Helms had told me in the van, we were driving to another building, and Shane Helms had said, "Oh, brother, you ought to call it the invertebraker, man." And I thought that was a great name for it, but I liked the end, and Kevin liked it, so I was going to stick with that. And after I got released from the company, when Bischoff and Russo came back, they fired me immediately because I was one of Kevin Sullivan's guys. And he called me. Shane Helms called me on the phone and said, "Hey, brother, you're not here anymore, man. You mind if I start using that move?" I said, "Hell no, dude. Like I told you, it ain't my invention." Anybody that thinks they've invented some new move, I got news for you. It's all been done. It hasn't been done on television in professional wrestling. It's been done in Mexico. It's been done in some other country. It's been done in England. That wasn't done there. Then Jackie Chan did it. Bruce Lee did it. Jet Li. Somebody did it. And if not any of them, then Walter Klobonsky, the 5-year-old or 15-year-old kid in his backyard, he did it. Yeah. Someone has done it before. There's only so many ways you can bend the human body. So it just when people talk about, "Oh, I invented this."
Wow. Yeah, well, I mean, that's great that you're able to be as level-headed as one of the people being honest about it, as opposed to having some big story about you're the one and only innovator of the move itself.
Yeah, it just kills me. I don't understand it. How can you sit there and say that? "Oh, this was my move. I invented it." Wow, that's incredible. No shit. Guarantee you did it way back in the day. Someone has done it.
Yeah.
We've been around for, a little while. We only have 4 limbs.
Yeah. And especially, someone probably did it in a cave as well a long time ago. So.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I mean, some caveman or some kid on a trampoline, a clown at a birthday party. Somebody's done it.
Yeah. Oh boy. So I think a good way to kind of close out here, and I don't even know if you have any right off the top of your head, but as far as over the years, is there any particular road stories or ribs that you'd like to share?
Oh hell.
Well, I know there's got to be so many, but
yeah, man, there's actually a ton of them. One that I thought was kind of funny was me and Crash Holly. What Donovan had done, he jacked up my car. I had a Camaro, and he jacked it up, and he took all my tires off of the fucking car. I'm sorry, I'm fucking up my own story. He had stolen my car and went and parked it down along the next block. So I found out about it. Crash came and told me what he did, and so me and Crash went and jacked his car up, took the tires off, and Donovan, I went into the gym and I said, "What in the fuck, man?" I said, "I can't find my car." And Donovan says, "Oh, no shit." And I was like, "Yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know what happened to it. And someone got your car too, man." And he goes, "Someone stole my car?" I says, "Yeah, well, no, I mean, they didn't steal your car. They just jacked it up and took all your tires off." And so then later on that night, Crash and I got him again. We did we went over to a place called, what the fuck was the restaurant called? Anyways, some family restaurant. Went over there and got gravy and put gravy up under his handles of his car. We did every gimmick, put the talcum powder in the heater and the air conditioning, just everything we could do. We put rotten sausage under his seats. we did just about everything to his car to deface it that we possibly could. Another time, there was a wrestler named Cowboy Lang. He was a midget, and real good guy and very talented. And he's passed away. And me and a buddy of mine, Frank Murdoch, we took all the midgets things. And a lot of people are going to think, oh, that's fucked up. You're being mean to midgets. But Cowboy Lang didn't mind. He was a tough guy. He was a man. He could take it. And so we piled up all of their stuff in their room on top of one bed. So we took the other bed and flipped that first. Then we put the tables up there and chairs and toilet paper, toilet seat, shower curtains, Bible, everything that was in that room that was detachable went up on top of that second bed. And at the top of the stack, we had a chair upside down. We hung Roland's underwear from the leg of the chair with skid marks, intact. And then we opened up the Bible to Psalm 23. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And, we turned on the shower and turned it on full blast and turned it on hot. And then we left the room. And I'd say maybe an hour later, Cowboy Lang went to go, or Little Nasty Boy, another guy that was there, he went to go into the room. And when he opened it, this smoke starts coming out, all this steam, right? I panicked. I'm not joking. I panicked. I thought, what the fuck? How'd the room catch on fire? And I started thinking, can hot water even catch on fire? Because that was the only thing I could think. We left hot water on, but it shouldn't cause a fire. But that's how bad the steam was. It looked more like a fire than steam. And Nasty Boy walked into his room real quick, shut the door, and then he came right back out. He came up to me and he asked me, he goes, all right, Modest, so who played the rib? And I was like, rib? Define rib. What rib are you talking about? And he says, all right, that's cool. I'm just going to let Cowboy Lang find it. He goes, because then the rib's on him. It's not even on me. So Nasty Boy didn't sell for me. And Cowboy Lang, a little while later, he went into the room, opened it up, and saw all the smoke. He walked into the room, and right away he started yelling, Modest, you motherfucker. And came out and hurt me with his cigarette in the crotch. That kind of stuff. But it was, it was all in good fun.
Wow. That sounds like quite a situation.
Yeah.
Going on.
Ribs, it's I don't know. There's been so many, and they're all great. But, some people take it too far. I'm not a big fan of shitting in someone's wrestling boots, shitting in the bag, things like that. I don't think they're that funny. I think ribs are better when people walk away from them and don't really incur too much financial devastation because of your bullshit rib.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, that's all a part about being creative too. I mean, I'm sure that's been done several hundred times.
Right. Real easy to shit in someone's boots.
Yeah.
Put your brain to the grindstone. Think of something good, something that has done 500,000 times.
Yeah. Well, it's probably been done before, but at least not 1,000,000 times.
Right.
We were talking about earlier.
Exactly.
Well, hey, thank you, Mike, so much. We want to go ahead and close this out. I want to give you the opportunity, though, to plug some stuff. I know you got a wrestling school going on and some other projects as well, so why don't you fill us in on that?
Well, if you want any info on Mike Modest, you can go to www.mikemodest.com. Check it out. I'm wrestling for Lucha Extreme this Saturday. That's a great new promotion. We're drawing crowds of 1,200 people. I'm wrestling as the Border Patrol out there for Lucha Extreme, and their website is luchaextreme.com. The extreme is spelt with an X. And tune into Modest Joint on whoslammingwho.podomatic.com every Monday at 6 p.m. And that's about it, man. That's all I got to plug.
All right. Hey, that's great. Who's slamming who? Podomatic.com, is that right?
That's the one.
All right, and luchaextreme.com, you'll be able to see, check out their dates, and you'll see Michael Modest popping up into your area sometime soon. So, Mike,
don't forget MikeModest.com, because that one, that's for all of your Mike Modest needs.
Yeah, that's the mothership of the Mike Modest
Exactly.
formula.
You can hit Facebook, MySpace. You can get to my podcast on Who's Slamming Who, everything from my website. So go check it out.
Whole bunch of cool stuff to check out. Mike, thank you once again for being on Wrestle Radio Rock, and we hope you have a good. I hope you had a good time with us. I know I had a great time talking with you, Chris, as well. So just thank you very much, and
thank you, Brandon. I really appreciate you and Chris taking an interest in hearing about an old geezer like me.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, thank you, and we'll be back.
Okay, brother. Take care.